In this problem, we're going to compare two economies. You have North Korea, which is communist, and you have South Korea, which is capitalist. And it's an excellent case study in what the differences are between the two economic systems, because we have 50 years of data showing which one's better. And you probably get the idea from this table right here. One of these countries is a healthy world-leading economy, and the other has people eating wild dogs for dinner. So let's get into it. And I'm going to assume, and this is a key point right here, I'm going to assume semi-annual compounding for my calculation of the growth rates. Now, there's two different kinds of compounding. You have continuous compounding and you have discrete compounding. This right here is discrete. Okay, so that has a particular formula that we have to use, and that formula is A equals P times 1 plus the growth rate, which we don't know, divided by N, which is the number of compounding events, to the power of NT. Okay, so now we're going to plug in the things we want from this table. And because I am looking at South Korea, right here on the bottom, we're going to focus on those data points in this table. So let's punch those into our equation. Let's see what we get. So the final amount after 50 years is 31,600. The initial amount at the beginning, you can think of this like your investment or the starting amount, is 280. And then I have the rate, which I don't know, divided by the compounding schedule, which is semi-annual. Remember, that means n equals 2. Okay, so that's my 2 right there, ends up here. And my t, the time, that comes from up here. That's t equals 50. Okay, so over 50 years, I run this economic experiment, and we're going to see what happens. So to simplify all of this, the first thing we need to do is get the exponential by itself. In other words, see this guy right here? That needs to be alone before I can start canceling things out. So the first thing I'm going to do is divide both sides by 280. Okay, and that's going to give me, let's see, calculator says that's going to give me 112.857. And that equals 1 plus r over 2. I'll simplify the exponent to just be 100. Okay, now of course there's a lot more decimals, and for the most part, I'm going to keep those decimals on the calculator, and I try not to round. I mean, you have to round a little bit, but I try not to round until the very, very end. So the next step I do is I want to take the 100th root of each side. Okay, and that's going to cancel out my 100 exponent right there. Sometimes people make a mistake of running to logarithms, because logarithms happen all the time when you're dealing with exponentials. But if you notice, see this exponent right there? No variables in that. That means we don't need to use a logarithm. We just use a square root of some kind, or in this case, a 100th root. So those are going to cancel out. And the thing on the left side, well, that's a calculator job for sure. And if you don't know how to do the 100th root, I'd suggest this. This is what I usually do on my calculator. I'm going to say 112.857 to the power of 1 over 100. That means the same thing as the 100th root. And that's going to give me 1 plus r over 2. Now, 112.857 to the 100th root is 1.04, 8396, and lots of other stuff that I don't care about, equals 1 plus r over 2. So now I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. That knocks that out. And then I'm going to multiply by 2 on both sides. And what that gives me in the end is 0.096792. And that's the growth rate. Now that's as a decimal, so you don't want to put that in as your answer. We need to turn that into a percentage by moving this decimal place 2 spots over. So that's going to be, as a percentage now, 9.6, let's call that 9.68%. Okay? Now that's a nice healthy growth rate, especially over 50 years. And you can see how much more wealthy the South Korean economy is. They started out pretty dirt poor, and now they're doing very well for themselves.